All righty, we're going to go ahead and start here. So my name is Shane Hart. I work over at Gorsuch West now. It's my third year over here. I've been an admin over here. And before that, I was a Spanish teacher at the high school for 12 years or so. I kind of, when I was asked to do a presentation or PD for today, I kind of wanted to hurry up and choose my own topic. That way I didn't get kind of stuck with something that I didn't really believe in necessarily, or try to make up some things that I didn't know a whole lot about. Go ahead and do this topic because I feel like I have had some experience in this realm, life, and also in the teaching and education world. So.
Mute yours. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all good. All right. So today, what we're going to do, guys, I'm going to talk a little bit about my own personal story, some of the details about where I come from. We're going to do a getting to know you exercise, getting students to thrive, because this is about us and also the students. Talk about a fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Trevor Lane is a guest speaker I've got coming in later. He wanted to go toward the end of my presentation here, so I said that was okay. We'll play a little guess who and figure out what we're good at. You can see on the right, those are some of the things that we'll hopefully get out of today as we're going through this slideshow here too. All right, so I did want to go ahead and start with this a little video about what grit is all about in somebody else's words other than mine. So here we go.
Do you know what grit is? Well, not really. I'm asking if you know about this kind of grit. Grit is the combination of persistence and resilience. So let's first define persistence. Imagine you're learning to ride a bike. When you get on a bike for the first time, you may find that you can only go a few feet before falling over. If you're persistent, you steady yourself, put your feet back on the pedals and keep trying again, and again, and again, and again. You may not be fully riding the first time or even the 20th time you try, but with persistence, you'll keep trying until you're riding on 2 wheels and maybe even no hands. Resilience is toughness. Imagine you're trying to ride your bike again. This time you crash and you scrape your knee. If you're resilient, you will not let the experience or fear of falling down keep you from getting back up and trying again. When you have both persistence and resilience, you have what we call grit. Because true learning comes from overcoming struggles. Without grit, you would never learn from your mistakes or failures. Let's equate passing a college course with riding a bike. If you go into it thinking the course is impossible, you'll never learn or even give yourself the opportunity to learn. However, if you approach the course with the same grit as learning to ride a bike, you'll see that nothing is impossible. And truly, the path to success isn't about being the smartest or the fastest. It's just a matter of how you react when challenges and setbacks arise. Failed a quiz? No problem. With grit, you resolve to try harder, and as a bonus, you also now know what you need to work on a little more for the next quiz. Remember, when something seems impossible, just remember the first time you ever tried to ride a bike. Now go out there and be successful.
Okay, I want to start off with that also because there is a difference between resilience and grit. Grit is doing the things that you don't necessarily want to do. It's not just working hard. It's working hard even though you don't want to do it. And also, like I said, the resilience and persistence have to go together to be able to form grit. I kind of want to go over where I've gotten some of my grit from. The first word that came to my mind when I thought of the word grit was the top left picture here. The baseball team, Coach Corey Kahn was really big into getting his players to struggle through the pain, to practice harder than you play type thing. And I think that really helped me understand grit and as far as it related to how I could take it from the sports world and put it into the education world. But even before that, we had a lot of things in my life that have added to my own sense of grit and how gritty I've become, I think, as a person. So little background here, went to Columbus Public Schools, severely underfunded elementary school. Broadley Elementary is where I grew up. I think I was maybe one of two white kids in my whole grade, which gave me a little bit of an understanding of what it's like to be a minority. In that school, I mean, I was picked on because of my skin color, things like that, and I had to overcome those things. We see a picture of my house, very, very quaint little house, very small house, on the left-hand side on James Road. And we thought we were like the rich ones in our neighborhood. What made us rich was having that basketball hoop out on my garage. We were a big place for kids to come over to our house and play basketball. I've spent hours and hours on that basketball court, shooting from that corner right there where the grass meets the driveway. I mean, over and over again in the rain, snow, whatever. Down there on the bottom right, you can see that's a place right down the street from my house, and it was called Uzi Alley or Greenbrier Apartments on the east side of Columbus. It was a rough place to live. We went to birthday parties over there, and it would often get interrupted with gunfire. We'd have to come in the house, and then we'd go back out to the party once we thought all the gunfire was over. Just wanted to give you an idea kind of where I come from and the hardships that I faced as a kid in a very poverty area, I guess. It didn't help that my mom kind of, dressed me to go walk past Uzi Alley, and I had to go down to the school, and she dressed me like this every day. Kind of didn't help matters at all. Me getting picked on for my skin color, my clothes, and everything else. So it almost felt like that country song, "A Boy Named Sue," where you just have things going against you that you kind of that makes you a little bit tougher, I guess. From there, we really moved on up. We moved out to Whitehall. You can see my house in Whitehall on Maplewood Avenue. Again, we're really making it now. Had a cup of coffee at Liberty Christian Academy. After that, ended up going to have to go back to public school after going to that Christian Academy for 2 years because we just couldn't afford it anymore. I did learn some good lessons at Liberty Christian, but then it was back to public schooling. Whitehall Yearling High School was kind of where I went. From there, you can see a swim land down there. Again, kind of an underfunded school a little bit, but we took a lot of pride. It was here where I took pride or learned how to take pride and not having a whole lot. That was kind of our MO. We didn't have nice things, and we were still going to beat you on the court, in the classroom, on the field, whatever. We knew that we were going to kick your ass, even though we didn't have the same things that you had, all the benefits that you had. I debated whether or not to put that there. I thought it was kind of stupid. I noticed that you're Whitehall. I'm pretty Whitehall myself. That never really goes away, even though I've been trying to hide and bury that down in my soul as deep as it can go. But it's always there, and I still do take a lot of pride in coming from that. From there, I went to Ohio State University. This is where I've really figured out that I really didn't have a whole lot growing up. Because I'm now going to school with a bunch of people who had everything. I mean, I'm talking about students whose parents paid for their college education. They're still paying for their cars. They're still paying for their books. They're giving them spending money. And here I am working at the bookstore so I can get discounted books, and also working at Don Pablo's and then later Champs restaurant so I could pay for my other activities that I was doing as well. Paid for everything by myself. So again, I was working full-time, going to school full-time. That really helped me develop an appreciation for hard work while I was there. So again, this is a picture of me my first year in college in Mexico. That's an iguana that had wandered up onto our roof, and I thought that was cool, so I wanted to pet it. But it was down in Mexico where I learned from the hardworking people down there that you don't have to have a lot to be successful, and that you can develop a great sense of pride from not having a whole lot as well. All right, from there, met my wife. I'll skip forward a little bit. 3 kids here. We've got Liam, Haley, and my stepson Chase here. We took them to the Blue Jackets game. Again, adding to the persistence and the resilience as well. Being a dad is hard, being a mom is hard. Went to Lancaster High School to work. And then, you know, some odd years later, we had COVID hit. All right. And these are all things that are building my grit and your grit as well. COVID hit and it did a lot for everybody, changed everybody's world. We all have to do things differently right now. This picture too, there's a lot of things that I didn't want to add to this because they were a little too personal that have added to my grit. I debated whether or not to put this down. It's my father. He is in the hospital right now. He ended up getting COVID. He's vaccinated and all that, but he did end up getting COVID. And he's in there now. He's been sick for quite a while. So this is even before COVID, he was sick, but now, you know, he's still going on. So again, these are just all the things that kind of add to my resilience, my grit, persistence, and going through the things that I'm going through. We all have these stories. We all have these stories. And I know that putting this together, that one little part of the presentation for me was kind of almost therapeutic. And it was good to reflect kind of on my life and what's made me me. So I know that you have a story as well. We don't all have happy endings. We all have students that don't have happy endings. And we talk about sometimes, you know, this person could go from being the head of a gardening business, or they could be in jail. All right. And there's moments that we can give them that will kind of decide their fate. I know that, you know, John Spires over here at Gorsuch kind of mentioned that the other day about a particular student that things we do matter. And we're trying to build this kid's grit so he can make the right decisions in life. But I encourage you to at least reflect on your life and figure out, you know, what has made you you. I do want to do this. You know, the only thing constant is change. It's a famous quote by the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus. Indeed, life is constantly changing and evolving. That means that from time to time, things just stop existing. You could lose a job, end a marriage, move to another place. Those are many examples of that many people have experienced. We lose out on something important. A big plan collapses, or we are rejected by someone. Another way of expressing this is the doors being closed. However, the end of one thing is always the beginning of something new. We have the option to stay focused on what is not here anymore. So those are the doors that are being closed, or become aware of the new avenues that do unfold. Optimism is that later option, the latter option, sorry. It's about seeing the doors that are being opened. It's about holding a favorable view of the future, taking closing doors into consideration and turning them into something beneficial. So guys, I would, in the chat, you can see, if I can get to the chat, that there are a couple of links. I do want to, sorry, I was reading the chats here. I do want you to click on the Google form. It says doors closed, doors opened link. And we're going to do a little activity just to kind of think about times in your life that a door was closed and a door was open. I think I want to take about, 5 or 10 minutes here to try to go through that Google form and answer those questions.
Hey, Shane, I don't see a link in chat.
You know what? I wonder if, because I put it in there before everybody showed up, if it didn't. Let me go back to the chat here and redo all that. Thank you for telling me that. Let's see. There's a link to a slideshow. Grit scale. The doors closed, doors open did not work yet. Hold on just one second. Let me copy that down. It's always something. I'm about done with Zooms. I don't know about everybody else.
Thank you for trying.
Chat to everybody. There's the Google form, please. Yep.
Yes, got it.
All right, there you go. Hopefully you have access to it. We'll see. All right. I'm gonna put myself on mute here. You guys can go ahead and do that. I'm seeing some pretty good answers popping up here. We're going to do a few more minutes just to let everybody get a chance to finish up here. So we will continue here pretty soon. Okay, we're going to keep on going here. I did look through some of those. Some of those are really personal. Obviously, guys, I don't want to share all those stories out because it was basically an activity for you to kind of see how you're doing with this whole grit thing, because I feel like we're probably doing better than what we think. There's been a lot thrown at us lately. I think that we are doing better than what we think on that one. So I did want to share a video. You may have seen it before from Angela Duckworth. She's written a book on grit. It's called Grit, the Power of Passion and Perseverance. I do want to play this snip from her TED Talk as well about how she views grit.
When I was 27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. The kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough. After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily? So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit. Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure, things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, it's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out. To me, the most shocking thing about grit is how little we know, how little science knows about building it. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? What do I do to teach kids a solid work ethic? How do I keep them motivated for the long run? The honest answer is, I don't know. What I do know is that talent doesn't make you gritty. Our data show very clearly that there are many talented individuals who simply do not follow through on their commitments. In fact, in our data, grit is usually unrelated or even inversely related to measures of talent. So far, the best idea I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail because they don't believe that failure is a permanent condition. So growth mindset is a great idea for building grit, but we need more. And that's where I'm going to end my remarks, because that's where we are. That's the work that stands before us. We need to take our best ideas, our strongest intuitions, and we need to test them. We need to measure whether we've been successful, and we have to be willing to fail, to be wrong, to start over again with lessons learned. In other words, we need to be gritty about getting our kids grittier. Thank you.
All right, so I love that video because this is why we're here. We are in Lancaster. We need to live on this grit idea. We need to make kids know that if they fail, it's not the end of the world. We are going to get better and achieve. And that's what I think is great about this EL program. Love it or hate it. This new curriculum that we have is really pushing kids, and a lot of them are failing. And that's okay. They need to know how to pass these things. They need to know that the failure is not the end, but it's part of the process. And that's why I truly love working here. When I had the choice of when I was coaching, some of it was in the junior highs, and I could go to Sherman or Ewing, and I was like, well, which kids, are going to fail a little bit more? That's where I want to go. That's where I want to go because I know that I can have the biggest impact. So I would always, go to Sherman to coach, and it seemed like those kids were the ones that made the most growth. And it's the same thing in the classroom. The ones that you instill grit into are going to grow the most. So again, I like the the call to other professions and things that she showed in that video. It wasn't just education, but in everyday life and every aspect of of learning. Skip that. All right, so when I was putting this together, this is a book that I was reading. It does have some things to do with grit. It's talking about thriving, engaged equals engaged learning plus academic determination. So here we're starting to take that grit idea and put it into the educational world specifically. It's how a student perceives their ability to learn and not necessarily dwelling on the failures. But grit and resilience are factors in that. So highly recommend this book if you want to look at it. It has more to do with how kids are going off to college. So from their high school days to their college days, what college professors are seeing. So I do kind of want to look at some of the things from the idea of declining student resiliency. This was from a book, Peter Gray. It says, we've raised a generation of young people, I gotta move my picture so I can read the rest, who have not been given the opportunity to learn how to solve their own problems, to get into trouble and to find their way out, to experience failure and realize they can survive it, to learn how to respond to challenges without adult intervention. So now here's what we have. We have young people going to college still unable or unwilling to take responsibility for themselves, still feeling that if a problem arises, they need an adult to solve it. That is so far out of my comprehension almost, because by the time I had gone to college, I had pretty much figured out how to solve some problems without my parents. And I feel like that's, you know, whose fault is this? Is it the school's fault? Is it parents' fault? I would say it's probably a little bit of everybody. We're all kind of breeding this into our kids, and it's really to their detriment. We're really worried about their feelings, and I get that side of things as well. But we have to learn how to manage their feelings and say that, you know, failure is part of growing. I can't solve your problem. You need to figure this out. Again, whenever I got to Ohio State, I saw kids fail. I saw kids go away for Thanksgiving break and never come back because they had been without their parents solving their problems for so long, when they had to go back to eat some turkey with them, and they realized, hey, this was a lot easier when I was with my parents. So they just never came back. Again, it's part of our duty as educators to instill this into our kids, because we are responsible for them after they graduate. I mean, that's part of the portrait of a graduate, you know, seeing what they look like after they leave here, and how they can handle life. In the college world, same book, says faculty are expected to do more hand-holding. They lower academic standards and not challenge students too much, which I think is sad in a college world. Students are afraid to fail. So when we have to install grit, we're not just talking about poor kids. We're not just talking about the impoverished, the kids that, you know, we don't see as have much. We're talking about the high achievers. Those high achievers a lot of times are afraid to fail. They don't take risks. They need to be certain about things. Failure is seen as catastrophic and unacceptable, and students email about trivial things and expect prompt replies. I'm sure we're seeing this in the high school level too. I don't see too many emails in the lower levels, but middle school probably as well. Failure and struggle need to be normalized. Students are uncomfortable not being right. So if you tell a student that they're wrong, they might think you're being mean, which is silly. It's just a fact that, you know, you were wrong. It's okay that you're wrong, but I'm not being mean by saying that. So growth is achieved by striking the right balance between support and challenge. We need to reset the balance point. We've always heard about these helicopter parents, but we've become a helicopter institution. We're saving kids from all sorts of failure. And I get, you know, we're dealing with kids with trauma as well, and we need to take that into consideration. But again, it's not what they need. They don't need excuses and things like that built in, but rather supports. All right. So I did want to throw this in. We're going to take a 5-minute break after this video here, but I just kind of want to look at this video. It's a trust fall. So basically what we see here, we see a girl, she's going to get directions, reassurance. They're going to check for understanding, make sure she knows where she's going. And we'll talk more about it, I guess, after watching the video. So.
And close your eyes and just fall down, okay? Don't worry.
Okay, then Lauren's gonna
Close your
catch
eyes,
you.
Close your eyes. Okay.
Okay, it's called the trust fall. Okay, trust fall. Ready, set, go.
So she goes the wrong way. And I thought that video was hilarious because it took me completely by surprise. Now, the directions were pretty clear. You fall. She understood it. You fall. There's a girl behind her. They gave her reassurance. This is going to happen. You're not going to be hurt. But then it was immediately followed by failure. All right. And I guess the question is, like, whose fault was this? I would say a lot of it was the girl. Like, that was pretty dumb. Like, you fall forward. I'd say some of it probably falls on the dad and the sister or whatever it is as well, for making sure that she knew what she was doing. They didn't set her up for success very well. And I can also say that, did she, I guarantee she learned from it. You don't fall forward on your face and not learn from it. So I would say that would fall right in line with this thing about grit. If she would go back up and do it, I guarantee she wouldn't fall forward again, but she would learn from her mistake. She made a mistake, she would learn from it. And that's how I kind of connected it to this. But I did think that was funny anyway, whenever I saw that video. I do want to take a break, about 5 minutes, let you guys go use the restroom, fill up your coffee, whatever, and we'll be right back. 10:45, we'll be back. Alrighty, I do want to kind of get into it here, guys. I did want to kind of look at this video. I know Billy kind of sent this out to everybody, but I love this kind of stuff, so I did want to watch. It's only 2 minutes long, so we'll kind of add it in here. Thank you, Billy, for that. Yeah, that's perfect, Billy. That fit right in. I love that kind of stuff. So I did want to put that on there. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we just really have to rethink about our ideas about how we're actually helping these students. Like, it's not really help if it's short term only. We got to look at the long game, I guess, here for that. So good find on that one. All right. So there is a grit scale. I kind of want to see how grit. This is only a 10 question, multiple choice. It won't take very long. So before we get any further into it, that Angela Duckworth, this is the book I was telling you about on grit that she had. In the chat, you should be able to find up toward the top a grit scale link. So I'll see if I can make sure I reshare that. So if you can't find it, but I would like you to go to that link and find your grit scale, or find your grit score, sorry. If you feel comfortable enough to put it in the chat where your score was, that's fine. You don't have to. There's no grade for this, so. I know that some of you guys are all in the same room as well, so it might not be easy to do. Susie Carpenter, 4.5, coming strong. Okay, so if you haven't done it, by the way, it only goes to 5. So if anybody's wondering why everybody has such a low score, it only goes to 5. So I wonder what how our students would answer this and how they would see themselves. Because I guess, your score would be a little bit different depending on the day, I'm guessing. But, do you think your score is better than you thought? Because it kind of tells you how you stack up against other people as well. I would say a lot of teachers are probably more gritty than the average person. I think it's part of the job. It gets ingrained into us. So I think that we're some of the most gritty. So if we're some of the most gritty, then why are some of our students not? Well, it's because we're not teaching it to them. I think it's the biggest skill that we can teach to them. And like Angela Duckworth said, it's the biggest predictor of success. So I think that we really need to be stressing, the toughness aspect of not just education, but everything that we do. Okay. So we got, so what now? What? Support students as they experience setbacks. These are some things that we can do. Goal setting with obstacle planning. We're going to help them see that these are a normal part of a rigorous education, that these failures are normal. This is one of my favorite quotes by Woody Hayes. And when I was coaching, I used to say it all the time. Anything easy ain't worth a damn. It's one of the few times I'll cuss at my own kids and tell them that too, that, if it were easy, everybody would do it. If it were easy, you wouldn't be learning anything. My stepson asks me all the time, how'd you learn Spanish? And that's a tall task too, because it takes a lot of repetition and things like that and effort to learn another language. And he said, was it hard? And I said, yeah, it was hard, but anything easy ain't worth a damn. So I didn't take the easy route here. I didn't want to do it that way. So again, Woody Hayes, big role model in my life, just looking at him, the way he handled business, I guess. Emphasize the importance of failure in the learning process and share personal failures. Don't be afraid to share those with your students. You don't have to share everything. I didn't share everything with you in my little spiel. I kept some of the most personal things for me, but I can share a lot of things that I failed at. Don't act like you've never failed. That's like one of the worst things you can do, because they assume that you don't fail already. I remember being a kid thinking that. My teachers never failed at anything, man. They must be on it all the time. Tell them that's not true. Give them hope that their failures can turn into success as well. Encourage reflection in your students. Encourage risk taking. This next little line here, one of my favorites of the whole thing: take the level of difficulty into consideration in grading projects. Say that again. So if your project is really tough, or if they're doing a project and they're going the extra mile, you might have your rubric all set up and laid out, but in that rubric somewhere, you should take that into consideration. They're trying new things. They're trying to push it, and give them a little bit of credit for that. Don't punish them for trying to go the extra mile and failing. I don't know. That's my little take on that, I guess. Instill a sense of belonging and bravery in students. Change the perception of failure from something that should be avoided at all costs to something essential to the learning process or to a meaningful education. Another guy right along with Woody Hayes is John Wooden. Losing is only temporary, not all encompassing. You must simply study it, learn from it, and try hard not to lose the same way again. It doesn't say not to lose again, not to lose in the same way again. That means you're getting a little bit better. Then you must have self-control to forget about it. So again, one of the best coaches basketball coaches ever out there. All right, so sounds perfect. So how are we going to do that? Here's we'll go up there. Here's some personal resilience and grit builders for us and our students that we can use. We can use these tools to help build resiliency, grit, relationships. Obviously, guys, the biggest thing out there. I think it was why am I blanking on his name? The basketball coach from Indiana, Bobby Knight, Jiminy, said that he could take a guy that knew nothing about the sport and he could be the best coach in the world if he built relationships with the players and got them to basically run through walls for him. So relationships is the biggest thing I think on there. Service, humor, interaction. Again, I used humor in my classroom a lot. Perceptiveness, independence, optimism for the future, flexibility, and a love of learning. And I've seen teachers in our buildings have pieces of this. Self-motivation, competence, self-worth. There's a lot of ways to build grit. Spirituality was a big one for me growing up. Perseverance, creativity. I'm not very creative, but it is what it is. Focus on strengths and not weaknesses, and impatience. All right. So the great news is there's a lot of ways to build grit in yourself and further on instill that in your students. So we have to stress these attributes in your life and in your students' life. Again, you don't have to be great at all of them, but you should try to be really good at a few of them. Be really good at a few of them. Pick a few a la carte style and become really good at that. And you know, that's a way to build grit. Another way to build grit in your students is a story that I heard about Warwick. This is Warwick the mule here. And I'm going to go ahead and read some of this story here to you. That way I don't mess it up here. It says, who do you have on your team in life? All right, I know I'd be a mess without certain people in my building over here at Gorsuch, my wife, my family, my coworkers, just to name a few. Of course, I need them for practical everyday things. I wouldn't be able to do my job effectively without my principal, without my coworkers. I would, as much as I would not be able to maintain a household without my wife. Okay, so equal parts there. But I'm going to need them for emotional support. So I need them for emotional support. When I have a bad day or feel frustrated or how things are going, they're there to pull me out of the slump. When I feel good and life is going great, they're there to celebrate with me. Those celebrations are more, are just as beneficial as being there for when the times are bad. So today I'm going to share a fun little story about from Change is Good, You Go First, about the power of teamwork. All right, so the story goes like this. A man was lost and driving through the country. As he tried to reach for his map, he accidentally drove off the road and bam, right into a ditch. Though he wasn't injured, his car was stuck deep in the mud. So the man walked to a nearby farm and asked for help. Warwick can get you out of that ditch, said the farmer, pointing to an old mule standing in the field. The man looked at the decrepit old mule and looked at the farmer who just stood there repeating, yep, old Warwick can do the job. The man figured he had nothing to lose. The two men and the mule made their way back to the ditch, and the farmer hitched the mule to the car, got him all tied up. With a snap of the reins, he shouted, pull, Fred, pull, Jack, pull, Ted, pull, Warwick. And the mule pulled that car right out of the ditch. So that man was amazed. He was like, my goodness, you think the farmer up and down, he patted him on the back. He patted the mule and said, man, that was awesome. But why did you call those names before you called Warwick? The farmer grinned and said, old Warwick is just about blind. As long as he believes that he's part of a team, he doesn't mind pulling it all. So I thought that was a really good story about the power of making somebody feel like a team. I hate to keep going back to coaching, but that was the obvious thing. You know, we play as a team. We are the team first. Students, same way. Your classroom, they're a team. You're a team with them. And if you don't make that kid feel like he's part of the team and a valuable part of that, he's not going to have the resiliency, the grit to continue to do great things and to succeed. So again, just think about those people with whom you are most effective. I mean, that people, when you work together, you can accomplish more than what you would have if you both worked alone. I'm not going to do this in the chat or anything, but I really highly recommend you take some time to thank them for what they help you do in life. It's an important thing to let people know that you're happy that they're part of the team. So anyway, going on to teaching grit. This is kind of one of the ways here in which we can teach grit. I just want to make sure I have time for my guest speaker here. I'm looking through it real quick. All right. This is something we made during the COVID times where we were all at home. We had these classes online looking like this. Have students. This is basically just a big PowerPoint with a lot of clickable things here. But this is one activity from our time when we did that. I kind of want to look at the video here. Pixar short films are great for teaching. Especially when you start talking about grit, rising above things. I mean, big topics, but little short films. But I want to look at this. We're not going to do all the things that are on here, but I do want to look at questions 3 and 4. I want you to tell me why the mama bird made the baby bird fend for itself. And was it an act of love or betrayal? And how did the baby bird take the traumatizing event and turn it into a defining moment in its life? So let's kind of watch this real quick here. All right, so, well, I'm mute now. I'm not. All right, so we can kind of see in that video and answer those questions, kind of, why the mama bird made the baby bird fend for itself. All right, was it an act of love or betrayal? I think we can all kind of see that it was an act of love. She wasn't over there getting the food for her baby bird. Now, I think you could probably do a whole nother video about grit on those poor clams that got eaten at the end, but that's a different day, a different video, I guess. But so like I said, I really want to stress, don't let poverty be an excuse for giving kids everything that they want or need. Make it about letting them find their own way out. I don't like excuses. I understand that we do need to help some. But make sure that these kids, even after they're gone away from our care, that they can provide for themselves. So we can see that the baby bird took a traumatizing event and turned it into a defining moment in its life where it could actually provide for other people. Okay. All right, again, Carol Dweck, Angela Duckworth, I think kind of mentioned her in her TED talk there. She's come up with this model here between comparing a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And this is just kind of oh my goodness, a picture of the side by side here. And a fixed mindset, we see that intelligence is static, leads to a desire to look smart and therefore a tendency to avoid challenges, give up easily due to obstacles, see effort as fruitless, ignore useful feedback, and be threatened by others' success. I think we see a lot of people in that fixed mindset, students, teachers, people on the street. We see a lot of people in that category. Whereas the growth mindset, the belief is that intelligence can be developed, leads to a desire to learn and therefore a tendency to embrace the challenges, persist despite obstacles, see effort as a path to mastery, learn from criticism, and be inspired by other success. Again, anything easy ain't worth a damn. It kind of goes right along with this. Woody Hayes didn't know that he was making this up before anybody else, but he was here. So what are some tools for teaching that growth mindset? We can things we can do in the classroom, intentional praise, smart versus hardworking students, share inspiring stories about yourself and others, teach about brain development, psychology, and neurological processes that might be a little bit in the upper grades, but we do it even down to lower grades to some simplified extent. Effort is required and encouraged, and to learn from mistakes. Mindsets to influence grit. You have to believe that you can succeed at something. So you have to be able to give that student the ability to succeed at something and make them believe that they can succeed. My ability and competence grow with effort. Challenge is inevitable for success. This work is in line with my interests, values, or goals. You have to be able to make it connect to that for these students, for them to have that growth mindset that influences grit. I believe in this academic community. And like I said, it's getting students to believe this. These are all true things, but we need to get them to understand and be able to pursue higher learning, I guess, at least in the secondary world. So we're gonna do some guess who's here, a little game here, where we see the failure is not the opposite of success, it's actually just part of it. And I'll see if you guys can guess who these people are before I show you the picture. So this person started out as a college dropout, started a traffic data company with flawed business model. So business model was terrible. It ended up having to close down with a net loss of $3,494. And that was quite a while ago before inflation. So this failed business helped him understand microprocessors. Who was this person? Gates. All right, love him or hate him. All right, that's who it is. All right, so Bill Gates. Before she wrote this book series, she was nearly penniless, divorced, severely depressed, and trying to raise a child on her own while attending school and writing a novel. The first 9 publishers rejected her book before a small businessman accepted it. Some of these stories you probably know. All right, J.K. Rowling. Again, love her or hate her, there she is. And again, rejected over and over and over again. Now very successful, obviously, with the Harry Potter series and other books. So this person once fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. Suffered bankruptcy, a mental breakdown, yeah, I'm sorry, I was reading the chats. Devastating strike and lost control over his creation, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Walt Disney, obviously. There's a picture of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit down there, which looks like he really changed it up a lot to make Mickey Mouse there. So, all right, this person suffered abuse from the age of 9, ran away from home at 13. She was pregnant at 14. She ended up losing that child. She was demoted from her job as a news anchor because she wasn't fit for TV. Oprah Winfrey. I hate this one too. I kind of hate this stat here, but anyway, cut from the high school varsity basketball team because he wasn't good and tall enough. Still made freshman team. He didn't get cut from the team overall as a freshman. He missed more than 9,000 shots in his career. Lost, yeah, he got it, Casey. Lost almost 300 games, 26 times. He was trusted to take the game-winning shot, and he missed it. MJ, the best player ever in the world. Don't give me that LeBron James crap. Don't give me that Kobe Bryant. Michael Jordan is and was the best player of all time. I did want to play this video. Just it has some of the stats there, but I thought this this commercial was good. If you ever wanted to show your students this and as a way to show them it's not all roses, you only see the good stuff. You don't see all the hard stuff. So I did think this was pretty for that.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
Good! The game's over, and the Bulls have won. Jordan beat him at the buzzer with a jump shot in the circle.
Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I led you to believe it was easy when it wasn't. Maybe I made you think my highlights started at the free throw line and not in the gym. Maybe I made you think that every shot I took was a game winner. That my game was built on flash and not fire. Maybe it's my fault that you didn't see that failure gave me strength, that my pain was my motivation. Maybe I led you to believe that basketball was a God-given gift and not something I worked for every single day of my life. Maybe I destroyed the game. Or maybe you're just making excuses.
All right, again, practicing harder than you play the game. He did that, so. All right, so how do we instill this grit into our students, heck, even athletes? We're going to establish the environment, set the expectations, teach the vocabulary that you're going to use. We're not talking about just the vocabulary that they're going to see in books, but things that you're going to be saying over and over again, your mottos and things like that. We need to teach that vocabulary, what it means. We're going to create frustration. I would say that our new curriculum is doing that. It's creating frustration. It's doing its job. All right. It's there to create frustration. And we can't dwell on the fact if kids don't do well, we're taking it as part of the learning process. We have to monitor that experience and reflect and learn. Pete Rose there, obviously, guys, another one of my favorites, being from Ohio. Practice the game the way you're going to play the game. Practice hard and play hard. Run hard, and above all else, hustle every moment you're on the field when you're practicing or playing in a game. The great Merwin Bowdish always used to say, great things happen when you hustle. So I think Pete Rose also said, bet the spread when you can. So I don't want to do this video because I do have a guest speaker coming up here.
Hey, it's me, Des.
It's kind of a cool video, though. It's where he takes the bike and he makes the wheel turn the opposite way in which he's turning, and he has to train his brain to learn how to do that. I'm going to take just a couple minutes break here, real quick, because I'm going to let Trevor Lane come up. He's got a great little portion of the PD here. So just take a couple minutes while he gets set up, and we'll make sure we're all ready to go. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get it going again, just to give Trevor enough time to speak. I do want to thank Trevor for being here today, kind of filling in with some personal stuff from his own life. And when I was talking to some people about maybe who I could get in, Trevor's name came up more than once from people around. Trevor, I'm going to go ahead and give the microphone to you, and I can go ahead and click through if you just tell me when you want me to change the slides, I suppose. Or maybe you can do it yourself. I don't know.
Yeah, good morning, guys.
Thank you, Shane, for having me on today. Uh, I'm really excited to be able to share with you. Like you said, my name's Trevor Lane. I've grown up around the Circleville area my whole life, and so I've been in Ohio and not much place else. And um, I've had some quite a bit of adversity throughout my life. I was born 4 months premature, and if Shane, if you want to flip over to this first slide here, at so I was born 4 months premature, between 22 and 24 weeks. Um, they say that's right at the cutoff where a baby can survive outside of the womb, and my doctor said that I would never be able to walk, never be able to talk. I would be a vegetable in a wheelchair my whole life because of the prematurity. And I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And I had a grade 3, I think it was a grade 3 brain bleed. I had a staph infection, lots of underdeveloped organs, and just uh, just just a really hard way right out of the gate. And it wasn't. I'm sure from a parent's perspective, they were thinking, well, what on earth are they going to do with a child that needs 24/7 care? And I spent about 3 months in the NICU, and I did survive, and I got home. And by the time I was 2 years old, I started using a walker to get around. So, Shane, if you want to go ahead and flip to the next slide. So, there's me in my walker, and I used a walker from about the age of 2 to about 4. And this was my first experience walking. And at this time, I was get, getting a lot of physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy. And I was also getting Botox injections. So if you want to flip to the next slide. So or I'm sorry, um, maybe it's the next one. Maybe I got them out of order. I apologize. But yeah, um, so what Botox injections are is they're basically used to help relax muscles. So if you've heard of somebody getting Botox to look a few years younger, I might think you're crazy, because what they did for me is they cerebral palsy causes spasticity in the muscles. So your muscles are very tight all the time. And so what they did, they used Botox to help relax the muscles. But they didn't just inject it into the muscle. What they did is they stuck the needle inside the muscle area, and then they dug it around to try to find the correct spot. And I'm telling you, that is probably one of the most painful things that I have ever experienced in my life. And I can remember being about 3 or 4 years old and experiencing this. It was very painful. And but the Botox injections, they started to help. And I started to be able to use forearm crutches, which is the picture that you saw right there. Yep. And I'm going to be honest with you, I hated those things so much, because at this age, I was 5 years old going into kindergarten, and my school was built back in 1916, which means that it was built back before World War I, which also means that it wasn't very handicap accessible. And so you can imagine the struggle that I had with with going downstairs and things like that. But I had probably the best, I'm biased, but I had the best teachers and peers around, because what they did, when I entered second grade, the second grade was on the second floor, and I was still having trouble going up and down stairs at the time. And so what they did is they moved the second grade to the first floor and the first grade to the second floor, so I wouldn't have to climb stairs. That was really awesome. They didn't have to do that, but they did it to help accommodate me, and so that I would be able to succeed as much as possible. But then there came a point where the Botox and the physical therapy, they weren't working as well, and they said, "Hey, we need to do surgery." And so what you saw on the purple casts on that second picture on that other slide is I had what was called a hamstring lengthening surgery. So what they did is they went in and they cut a portion of my hamstring and they stretched it out to try to get some more flexibility in it. And I'm telling you, that was even more painful than the Botox, because if you can imagine them cutting on a muscle and then stretching it out to try to get some more mobility, that's not very comfortable. And so I was in those casts for about 6 weeks, but that enabled me to walk on my own independently without any support whatsoever. And it took me about 6 years to be able to walk on my own. And but as I grew older, I was able to make a lot of friends. Um, I had the very rare blessing of not having to put up with hardly any bullying whatsoever, which is very rare for any kid, but especially for a kid with a disability. And when I entered junior high, I decided that I wanted to take on wrestling. And I wanted to do that because I was a really big fan of WWE at the time. And I thought, you know what? This is going to be as close to the stuff that I see on TV that I'm going to get to at this point. And so I thought, what the heck? Give it a shot. And so I went to my first practice, ended up loving it. And so I decided to try a meet. And well, I'm nervous, obviously. It's my first time. And here comes this kid who looks like he's been wrestling since he was out of the womb. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is not going to go well. And it didn't go very well. The next thing I know, I'm flat on my back, staring up at the lights, and the match is over in 5 seconds. And I'm thinking, man, what on earth have I gotten myself into? And my teammates were all cheering me on and saying, "Yeah, you did such a good job." And I'm a competitive guy. And so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, y'all, what the heck? I just got my butt kicked and you're telling me I did a good job? Come on now. So what ends up happening actually is I end up losing every single match my 7th grade year. So I wrestled, excuse me, I wrestled 35 matches my 7th grade year, and I lost all of them. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll give it one more shot. And if it still doesn't work, then I'll try football or something, And so I work really hard during the summer and make sure I'm as strong as possible. And wouldn't you know it, I lose every single one of my matches my 8th grade year too. And so I counted them. I'm keeping track. I've lost over 60 matches so far. And so I'm thinking, all right, I'll give it one more shot. And if still nothing happens, if I don't at least come close, then I'll try something else. Well, I end up getting absolutely manhandled my first 4 matches of my freshman year. And I honestly, I was getting so mad. And, I was putting in so much effort. I was working just as hard, if not harder, than everybody else in the room. And I had nothing to show for it. And so I had made up my mind that if nothing happened in this last match, then I was gonna quit. And so I go out for this next match, and we start wrestling, and and we go all 3 rounds, and lo and behold, I actually end up winning that match, 8-5 in the third period. And that was the single greatest feeling that I have ever experienced in my life. After losing 74 times in a row, I finally, I finally got one after 3 years, and that kind of gave me the courage to keep going. And uh, and I didn't win a match my sophomore year either, but I took that on with more significance because I had uh, given my life to God that year, and developed a relationship with Jesus that I began to use as a platform to share my story. I began to use wrestling as a platform to share my story. And what was really cool is, my junior year, I had the opportunity to share my story with 10 TV News, and that blew up more than I ever thought could I than I ever thought possible. I mean, I had people messaging me from all over the United States. Um, ESPN called my school and was wanting to do an E60 documentary on me, which was really awesome. And at the time, I said, "Of course," but you know how things are sometimes, and unfortunately, that opportunity fell through. And and of course, I was bummed about that because that would have been really cool. But my senior year rolls around, and I'm thinking, okay, I have got to win a match, just one, to go out with a bang, right? Um, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. But 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 God really showed me something that uh, sharing your story and inspiring those around you is much more important and will last much longer than a win-loss record. And so, I have had the privilege of sharing my story with probably hundreds and hundreds of people, and I get messages all the time of how much I inspire them, and things like that, and I'm grateful for that. But Jesus is, I would say that Jesus is the one that allows me to do things like this, and it's through my relationship with him that I've been able to do these things. And eventually, um, uh, I went to college to become a physical therapist because I wanted to help kids that were in the same situation that I was in growing up. But unfortunately, um, no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't keep my grades up. I kept failing the practical exams. Like I knew up here, I had the head knowledge, but when I was doing the practical exam, luckily this wasn't a real patient, but I fell on top of the guy, and I ended up flunking PTA school. And I'm thinking, well, God, what do you want me to do now? And I just heard him say, he wants me to preach. And so one of the ways that I started doing that is I launched a ministry at my church called God's Able. It's a respite ministry that gives the opportunity for parents and caregivers to drop their child or client off so they can have a couple hours break. And then we have different activities that are centered around improving fine motor and social skills, because those are the skills that people with disabilities struggle with the most. And then we also do give a Bible lesson with that as well. And, unfortunately, with COVID, we haven't been able to do much. So we haven't had an in-person meeting um, for probably close to a year and a half now. So that's been a little bit of a struggle, but we are planning to relaunch again in April. However, God had been working in my life, and just recently, when 2020 rolled around, it just seemed like everything came crashing down, right? That included my body started to kind of get mad at me as well. And so what happens with cerebral palsy is, as somebody with CP gets older, and I explained earlier, I don't know if I touched on this or not, but what CP is it's basically a miscommunication between your brain and your spinal cord, and your brain is telling your spinal cord to tell your muscles to stay contracted all the time. So my legs, I was not able to stretch my legs out and get comfortable because they would be tight and spastic all the time. Well, back in June, I had a procedure called selective dorsal rhizotomy. And what that is it's basically they go into your spinal cord, and they figure out which nerves are causing the spasticity, and they cut them and burn the nerve roots off. And when I first heard about this, I was like, "Ooh boy, if you mess up, I am gonna not be in good shape." So please get this right. And I had all the confidence in the world. God gave me an unbelievable peace about it. And and the doctor had been doing this longer than I'd been alive, so I was all confident that I'd be okay. And so that picture that you see on the left is the day of my surgery. I had to lay flat on my back for 3 days. That was not fun. And and when they finally sat up, it felt like that my spine was gonna fall out, but it was all okay. Um, and then I spent about a week in the neuro floor, and then a month in intensive rehab, trying to get back to where I was before surgery. Um, so with the surgery, they completely removed the spasticity. So I'm able to relax my legs and 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 begin to form new neural pathways through neuroplasticity to help me uh, move around better. And so I spent about a month in rehab. Uh, I think it's kind of cool how, I started out on a walker again, trying to get back up on my feet, and then I got strong enough to use forearm crutches, and then now I'm back up on my feet again, and so this is just some of the improvements that are visible that I've been able to make in less than a year. So with the spasticity, uh, I was developing scoliosis pretty bad, but now you can see that that's all corrected. And with the spasticity, it was very hard for me to build muscle in my legs. So this was in April, about 2 months before my surgery, and then on December 29th, that is 6 months after my surgery. And so I've been able to make a lot of really great progress really quickly. And, I credit that all to Jesus, and of course my doctors have been amazing. And so I've been really fortunate and blessed with the absolute best. Um, so I would say, you know, we're talking about grit, and we're talking about not giving up. Um, Man, that there are going to be times in your life, and I'm sure your students' lives. I know that they come in with a lot of baggage sometimes, and it just seems like they want to quit, especially if they come from a broken home, or maybe you have children with disabilities in your classrooms, and they just feel like, you know, that they don't really amount to much, and that, you know, that they are having trouble making friends. And I just want to encourage you to be encouraged, but to also encourage them to not give up, because with the right support system and with the right tools, they can you will be amazed at what they're able to do when they're given a positive learning environment, positive reinforcement, and just the tools to shoot for the stars. Um, and I wanted to, Shane, if it's all right with you, I wanted to leave some room open for questions, um, uh, or any comments or anything like that. And so, um, yeah.
I'll look in the chat too. If you want, you can just unmute, but I'll also read in the chat. It says, thank you, Trevor, for sharing your story with us. God bless you, and continue to share your testimony. God is using you. Again, if anybody else has any questions, you can put them in the chat or just speak up.
And again, persistence and tenacity is key. You know, you're gonna fail in life. That's inevitable. It's just what you do with that failure, what you allow it to do. You could either let it, you know, destroy you or motivate you.
Trevor, I think your story is absolutely amazing. I really want to thank you for sharing it with us today. What I would say to anybody that heard this story is to not let it die in your head. To kind of, you know, tell your students, tell them stories like this, inspiring stories. Remember, that's part of how we grow grit. We share that it has been done before. We need to give these kids hope, and I think you know, Trevor, you've really upped our grit probably a little bit by sharing your story. You know, we all have issues, and hearing yours, and you know, sometimes ours seem like small things, but they're big to us. So again, thank you so much for sharing. In the chats, we got a bunch of people saying thank you for sharing your story, and really appreciate you doing that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also do want to mention one thing. I have written a book about my wrestling career and faith journey. It's called, if it's all right, I'll put it in the chat if you're interested.
Yeah.
It's called Victorious on and Beyond the Mat. And it may even be the very first one that pops up. So if you type it in like that.
Yeah. I will, I'll try to find that book as well. Is it on Amazon maybe, or? Amazon.
Yep. It's available on Amazon.
Okay. So I'll try to look that up on Amazon, and I'll attach it to my PowerPoint as well. I've already shared the PowerPoint out with people, so they can go check that out. So I appreciate you again sharing your story, dude. It's really great.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And guys, when I asked him if he would do this, he never had any reservations whatsoever. He's been so ready to do it, so willing to do it, and I really appreciate it. It made this very easy to get a speaker in for my section of this PD. So again, thank you, Trevor.
You're very welcome. Thank you, guys.
All right. So last thing here before we leave, I'm not going to top his story. So I'm just going to wrap it up here pretty soon. At the end of the PowerPoint, we have we have some resources for you if you ever wanted to try some with your students or whatever. They're on the back page, but I do want to leave just with this video. I mean, this video is over. So is the PD for today. We can go get some lunch. So come on. Good one to share with your students if you ever felt the need. All right, guys, have a good day. Link to Trevor's book in the comments or in the chat. Thank you. That was awesome.